Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another week of TechRise. I am Desiree Vargas Wrigley, the Executive Director of TechRise by P33. And for those of you new to our show and our pitch competition, TechRise was launched in partnership with Verizon to help support Black and Latinx founders here in Chicago, all the way from idea stage to exit. So each week we have 3 to 5 founders take the stage. They pitch their ideas over 4 minutes and then followed by about 4 or 5 minutes of Q&A with judges who come from all over the country. And then the judges deliberate and decide real time who's going to win somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000. This week, the prize money is sponsored in part by Cooley, the law firm that many startups know across the country. They just opened an office here in Chicago, so we're grateful to them for coming into our ecosystem so quickly. So this has been an interesting week and a big week actually for us at TechRise, because we learned a lot about the numbers of how TechRise is performing so far and the founders are performing so far. And we haven't published it yet, but I'm excited to share that so far about 90 founders have taken the stage between Q2 and Q3. And prior to coming on TechRise, they'd raised a total of $6.8 million, which across 100 founders, isn't great, especially since some of them have been around for years. But in just 4 months, a little over 4 months, collectively, they've raised over 100% more. So they've raised $7.2 million on top of that 6.8. And we pulled the numbers in Crunchbase to see how our Black and Latinx founders are performing this year. And guess what? We went from 5% of early stage funding in Chicago going to Black and Latinx founders to 17.4%, making Chicago the best city in the world for supporting Black and Latinx founders. And we couldn't be more proud of the collective effort that's happening across our city, across many organizations and funders that are making this possible. So I just want to take that moment to celebrate. But I also wanted to acknowledge something else it's pretty important. Yesterday, apparently, what I just learned this was Latina Equal Pay Day from 2020. So that means a Latina in the US has to work all of 2020, all the way through October 20th of 2021 to be able to earn the same as her white counterpart in 2020. And for Black women, that date was August 3rd. So we still have a long way to go in terms of narrowing the gender wealth gap. And one of the best ways to do that is through entrepreneurship. So if you know of any Black or Latina founders, aspiring founders, service businesses that can bring tech to life, we would love to have them here on the TechRise stage. So please encourage your friends and family to apply at www.techrise.co/apply. But today we are going to celebrate, and we're going to award $20,000 to hope make people's dreams come true. So I'm excited to switch gears and move into the very optimistic part of our show, which is introducing our judges and our founders. So first we have Tina Harbach. She's the Senior Director of Startups for FutureFounders, where she leads the organization's team that serves 18 to 30-year-old founders nationwide through their fellowship and startup bootcamp programs and external partnerships with organizations like Blackstone Charitable Foundation. Tina is passionate about economic development and education. Outside of FutureFounders, she serves as a mentor and associate board member of the Chicago Scholars Foundation and is a young professional ambassador with the Chicago Council on Global Affairs. So, Tina, so great to have you.
Thank you. Excited.
And next we have Michael. Oh, I'm going to mess up your last name. I think I should have asked you before. Sorry, Xavier? Am I saying that right? Xavier, I'm sorry. I'm principal at Basecamp Fund. Michael is a former founder, operator, and experienced private market investor with experience as a GM at Uber and Jump. He invests in ambitious founders across sectors and the globe, and he holds a BS from Georgetown and an MBA from Dartmouth. Thanks so much for being here. And our final judge is Gary McBerryhill. Gary is a citizen of the I should have gotten some help before. I'm so sorry. Muskogee? How do I say that? Muskogee Creek Nation, thank you, and an investment associate with Raven Indigenous Capital Partners. Gary joined Raven in 2021 to help lead Raven's investments in Native American-led startups in the US. Gary has worked in Native American finance since 2014, and he has experience in private equity, tribal economic development, sovereign investment, and real estate. Sorry about stumbling over names and words today, but I'm so glad to have you all here, and thank you for the time you're committing to these founders today. So without further ado, we will introduce Hanglyde and Arnold Connell.
Hi, Desiree. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Go ahead and share my slides here.
Great. I'll let you know when we can see them. Looks like you're good to go.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I'll go ahead and, sorry, just minimize this. I'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Arnold Connell, and I'm the founder of Hanglyde, where we help artists and creators to better engage with their biggest fans. But before I tell you how we do it, I'd love to share why. More than 20 years ago, as a new saxophone player, I heard my first Kenny G album and was instantly a super fan. Several years later, after attending a concert right here in Chicago, I was able to meet him backstage where he shared some of his insights and playing techniques with me. I was so excited that I went home that night and practiced as soon as I got home all evening. But then the next morning, I realized there was a problem. You see, there was no easy way for me to engage with him again, to ask more questions, to get insider information about new upcoming music, or even connect with other super fans like myself. And after doing some research, I found that I wasn't alone. In fact, he has thousands of other super fans with similar stories and the same desire for an ongoing, deeper engagement. That's why we're building Hanglyde, an all-in-one app for artists to host paid superfan communities to better engage with their biggest fans. Here, they can host live streams and bring fans up on stage and directly into the conversation. They can also easily share exclusive content, such as early access to new or never before released music, and behind the scenes videos, and so much more. Now, superfans like me are a small but mighty group. On average, we represent only 2% of an artist's total following, but we account for more than half of their yearly revenue. And with a market size of $104 billion and growing, we're a very important group that any serious artist needs to be focused on. Now, there are other solutions in the market that are also working to help connect fans with artists, but the problem is they typically only offer one-off experiences or require the usage of multiple third-party noisy apps. None of them, however, provide the easy, all-in-one ongoing engagement experience superfans like myself actually want. And of the 50 million total artists and creators globally, there are 1 million that fit our customer profile, having an overall social media following of around 75,000 to 1 million. And we estimate that we can acquire these artists for a cost of around $150 each and realize a $3,600 ARR. And we can further drive that cost down as we continue to gain traction. Now, to get artists on board, we're employing a combined method of direct outreach to those that fit our customer profile. And we're also identifying and reaching out to their super fans to also get them excited about Hanglyde, so that we have the fans also advocating for us, which helps the artists understand very clearly how big the opportunity is. Now, the way we'll make money is very simple. We'll collect a 15% commission from each fan's membership transaction. And based on an average of around 250 fans per artist community and having 25 artists on the platform, we're projecting a 90K ARR by Q2 of next year. Now, I'd love to introduce you to the team. We may be small, but we're very strong and have over 17 years of combined experience working in tech and product roles at companies like Google, YouTube, and Dropbox. And we're very excited and ready to take on this big challenge of helping artists to better engage with the most active fan group. Progress-wise, we've completed our MVP build of our mobile and web platforms, and we did it completely in-house to keep costs low. We're also actively working to onboard our first 2 artists onto the platform, and winning the TechRise competition today would help us to cover the upcoming customer acquisition costs as we continue to move forward with acquiring new artists. And with that, I'd like to end and open it up to the judges for any questions they may have. Thank you.
Great, you can go off of presentation mode, and judges, you can come on. Tina, you want to kick us off?
Sure. My question for you is, what type of basic event do you think would be, or I guess, relationship would the artist have with the fan? What's that MVP event look like for you?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways we envision it. So I think the number one thing we think is going to be around the live engagement piece. So in the case of an artist just kind of popping on and maybe an impromptu conversation from the couch, maybe just noodling around with a tune that they have in their head and going, hey guys, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about this tune? Or here's a new piece of music that I'm working on. Just pulling those fans deeper behind the scenes to give them more access. On the other side of it, I think, I envision premium content, right? So maybe unreleased music that the artist hasn't put out there yet and just making that available into the community. Maybe early access to new content that's still in the ideation phase, different things like that. So really just bringing that close fan much further behind the curtain to see more of the process.
Could you please describe your target, the target artist that you're trying to attract onto the platform?
Yeah, so obviously we'd like to ultimately get to the larger, well-known artists, but we're going to start more with the indie artists, the much smaller artists with a smaller following, just because it's easier for us to actually reach out to those folks directly and make some headway there, actually learn more about exactly their specific needs and how we can help them. And then ultimately from there, we'll look to scale up to increasingly larger artists and larger groups of fans.
Given your background at YouTube previously, what sort of led you to? I'm a heavy YouTube consumer, so I'm just curious how you're focused on the super users or the power users of them. So what has sort of led you, especially given your background, to really want to do this?
Yeah, so I'm basically building something that I want myself, right? So selfishly, I want to get to the point where I actually, I have, I'm a super fan myself, like I mentioned. I want Kenny G on my platform so that I can actually join his community, right? And engage with him and consume that same behind the scenes content, that same in the practice room content that he's creating. And so it's a personal thing that's driving me from that way. And then certainly from the YouTube end, it's a great platform, but the problem is it's very one way. So even when you see content from your favorite creator on YouTube, you can certainly drop in static comments, but after a couple of days, those comments tend to no longer be replied to. So if you are a true fan of that artist or creator on YouTube, it's very difficult to get any questions that you have answered or get further insight into maybe even their desire or the thing that drove them or led them to create that video in the first place.
Got it, thank you.
You said you have 2 artists that are like kind of you're working on getting on the platform. What has the reception been from the other side, the potential fans? Have you guys talked to fans? Do you have a waiting list or any kind of traction on that side of the marketplace? No,
absolutely. So that's actually, originally we started just trying to cold outreach to artists, and we were finding that we were making progress, but it was very slow. And so then we pivoted into a new model where it's like, let's identify the folks that are most heavily engaged with, in the case of the 2 artists we're working with now, and let's see if we can figure out the top 50 people, right? And let's reach out to them and pitch Hanglyde to see if how interested they would actually be in the platform. And so that's how we've been able to actually engage these first 2 artists that we're actually working with, is by saying, hey, we've built this platform that we think can help you, but also you've got some fans over here that are actually saying that this is pretty cool and they actually want this level of access and engagement, and they're willing to pay you every month for it. And so that actually helped to grease the wheels a bit to get these artists much more willing to open up and talk to us and to actually hop on the platform and give it a shot.
What protections do you intend to put into place to keep the quality of fan to artist interaction and fan to fan interaction positive and high level?
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of things that we're looking at. So I think just the nature that this is going to be only a paid platform, so you have to pay a membership fee to an artist to actually join. We're hoping that that membership fee will act as a buffer to keep to keep that high quality super fan in and to keep out a lot of the noise that you typically see on most traditional social platforms. In addition to that, there will be some engineered moderation features that we'll be looking to implement as well. And in the future, for larger artists that join the platform, we'll also be exploring service level options where maybe we provide community management to help them manage those groups.
Sorry, Arnold, I cut us off, but great job. And next, I'm going to welcome Marcello Navarro from Workvana.
Am I live?
We can see, we just need to see your slides, and then Gary, mind going video off? Don't see him quite yet.
All right, do we have them now?
Nope.
Hold on a second.
Looks like you're good to go.
All right, give me 1 second. Full screen.
All right, go ahead.
All right. All right. Workvana, community and workspace around the corner. COVID-19 has unleashed the unthinkable, which is a $2.5 trillion office market. Now the workplace will never be the same, as 2/3 of US workers want to continue working remotely, and almost 75% of US corporations are confirming that remote work will be part of their policy. But remote work does not have to be work from home, as that brings its pains and struggles. More than half of remote workers report being distracted at home because of kids or pets, and more than 60% report isolation and loneliness like me. Lastly, working from home blurs the lines of work-life separation, and thus we find 70% of remote workers being burnt out. And thus Workvana. We empower remote workers by turning restaurants into productive and inspiring community workspaces. Imagine yourself at the convenience of your local dinner-only restaurant being open to you. As you walk in the morning, the community manager has already turned on the enterprise level Wi-Fi, placed outlets throughout the perimeter, and welcomes you with a cup of locally roasted coffee. Before you know it, you're in the best productive flow. And before you leave, you learn of upcoming events and get introduced to fellow Workvana members with similar interests and hobbies. Bye-bye loneliness, and hello Workvana community. And this community is exactly why I drove to the middle of nowhere to find the best co-founder who's already scaled WeWork through 4 continents, but more on that later. Let's go through our asset-light, highly scalable model, as all these restaurants are already built out. Every month, our members pay us a monthly subscription. In return, we create a new bottom line revenue source for the restaurants. As I already stated, we create a great user experience, which in turn makes our members productive and engage with fellow members. A subscription model on an underutilized asset around something we all have to do, work. Is there competition? Of course, but none have the great user experience like Workvana. This XY chart shows the amount of space allotted for remote workers and the level of community engagement. The bottom left side are all these aggregators of co-working spaces, also their common area basically, and the 2 on the bottom right are aggregators for restaurants that are open for food service. So thus none are going to have enough space for remote workers, and none have actual employees on site curating a great user experience, which we can't forget is one of the cardinal laws of startups. So why now and why us? Well, COVID-19 has started this workplace revolution, and no other startup has the team, the experience, and the community focus that we do to scale it globally. Iyad was part of WeWork's global expansion leadership team, and he opened up WeWork locations across 4 continents in 8 years. He grew WeWork to 16,000 members in Asia and had 127 community managers reporting directly to him. He brings the operations and global scaling experience needed and already proven. As for myself, I'm probably the original remote worker. Been doing it for 20 plus years and have tried endless coffee shops, endless co-working spaces, feeling the isolation at home, thought what every founder thinks, there has to be a better way. I also bring over 25 years of business development experience and have done deals in over 30 countries myself. Together, we see the global opportunity at hand. Now let's talk about this market opportunity. It's well over $55 billion, and let me explain how. The US labor force is about 160 million people. 51% of the labor force could work remotely, and there's another 7% of professional freelancers that work for themselves. Together, that makes 92 million workers, and multiplying it by our $600 annual plan creates this $55 billion market opportunity, and the revolution has just started. Last year, we did a pop-up between the 2 lockdowns, July and October, and with no vaccines and limited capacity in restaurants, we reached 70 members and $2,200 in monthly recurring revenue service. We knew this was great insight into the need that would be coming once vaccines arrived. We have over 12 restaurants ready to partner with us. We anticipate our customer acquisition to be $100 based on a national study, and the TechRise funding will be allocated for customer acquisition as well as for marketing for the launch. We feel that in 3 years, we can scale to 100 locations and reach $25 million in annual recurring revenue. So 3 years from now, our goal is to have 25,000 members across 10 US cities, create meaningful community, and help endless restaurants recover from the decimation of COVID-19. Thank you.
I like how you sped up and got into that 4 minutes, Marcello. Good job. Okay, go ahead and go off the presentation, and judges, you can come on for questions. Gary, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Given that you have, given that you're targeting dinner-only restaurants, what is the, how can I put this? What is the plan for training your user base that they have to be out of there before they have to start turning that space over into evening service?
Great question, and that's part of the onboarding. The onboarding is obviously understanding that we have the place usually till 4 p.m., possibly 5 p.m. And that as the restaurant opens, they definitely have to stay and consume, which was already happening to begin with. Around 5 o'clock, people didn't want coffee. They wanted an IPA or a glass of rosé or a hamburger, and they would just stay and consume and continue working. And that's something that naturally is starting to happen in restaurants, and they themselves are starting to put outlets around the bars and even outlets in the booths.
Who are these community managers at the restaurant? Can you go over that like role? Is it somebody that's internal to your staff, or is it a restaurant member that is the staff creating community?
We have the hosts ourselves, so they're our employees. So the restaurant does nothing, which is what they love. Like the money that we give to them literally goes to their bottom line. They do nothing. So they hand over the keys to us. They give us their passwords for the security system, but we want to have that control. So we create and curate the user experience.
Is the community manager on site in each of these restaurants?
Yes.
Can you describe the sort of path to 25 million? If I heard you correctly, you have, is it 10 to 12 sites, at least in pipeline?
So we have over 12 restaurants that are ready to partner with us. The 25 million is based on getting to 100 locations. So basically the unit metrics are about $250,000 in revenue per location.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Can you walk me through the density for these dinner-only sites in your target markets?
Yes. So obviously we don't want to put people like sardines like at a coffee shop. So it's based on 50% capacity. So imagine like a deuce is used by one person, a four top is used by two people.
And what are your customers? Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Is the restaurant paid a flat fee, or are they paid based on the number of people they attract over a given period?
So as we all know, not all real estate is created equal. So it depends on the location of the restaurant and where it finds itself. So it's something like in the suburbs, we have a lower agreement as opposed to something like, let's say in River North or the Gold Coast.
And what are your customers telling you why they would do this rather than doing a WeWork or just going into their coffee shop? Because they are paying a little bit of a premium here.
Great question. So basically, if you do the unlimited plan, it comes out to like $6 a day, which you can easily spend at a coffee shop. You've got no guaranteed sitting at a coffee shop. You've got the chaoticness. It's not similar-minded individuals. You've got everybody that simply wants to go around a coffee shop. And, you know, we've all had it, right? Like Miss So-and-so triple soy latte, double cup, like for the 7th time will you pick up, right? And they keep it purposely cold so you buy more coffee. We actually keep it nice and warm so you can actually take your sweater off at the restaurants. And then WeWork, nothing against WeWork, especially with Iyad on the call here, but you know, WeWork is on center locations and they had 30-year leases. We have no leases and everything's already built out for us. So that's why it's an asset-light model. And we're about 75% less than like the lowest WeWork plan that's out there.
Question for you on viewing the funding down the line. What do you think it'll take? I mean, WeWork just went via SPAC. I know that's, I mean, it's a comp, but it's also not a comp because there's so much more further down the line. But how are you thinking about this? I imagine you're looking at debt financing down the road and so forth.
You know, it could be any, there's obviously nowadays there's family offices that have made their money in commercial real estate and they're right now freaking out because all prognoses are that, you know, those tall office buildings are probably going to have like a 30 to 40% reset down. And so anything from family offices, anything from private equity firms that focus on real estate. I mean, you know, this could go anywhere. But debt financing, you know, if we've got the revenue, it would be a smarter choice as opposed to giving up equity, as I'm sure you know that.
All right, great job, Marcello. Thank you, judges. We'll have you go off and we're going to invite Christopher Holloway from HouseofTrade next. All right. Marcello, can we get you a video? Perfect. Okay, we can see your slides. We're ready to go when you are.
All right. Did you know that most people only wear 20% of their closet 80% of the time? Have you ever found yourself looking through your closet only to find clothes you barely or never worn? Do you wish you had items you actually wear without having to spend more money to get them? That's where HouseofTrade comes in. Those barely worn clothes is what we call a HouseofTrade closet currency. It's our mission to give people an opportunity to use their closet currency to trade for items they want. People want to have new clothing without having to spend more money to obtain them. I've been a sneakerhead and into fashion since I was 12. And throughout the years, the fashion industry has grown to the point where direct resellers like Nike, Supreme, Polo, and other brands have created a false sense of exclusivity and scarcity. Because of this, consumers face massive inflation rates on items in the resale market, up to 1,000% of the retail price. Additionally, many stores in the resale space advertise as buy, sell, trade, but don't actually offer options for trading. Consumers want to trade, but often aren't able to due to safety concerns, questions about authenticity, and not having enough inventory available to them. So here's how it works. First, users create a free account on HouseofTrade website to upload their closet currency. Next, users search the site for items that they're looking for. Finally, when a trade is accepted, users ship their items to HouseofTrade for product authentication, and then complete the transaction by shipping the new items to each user. So now that you know how to trade, how big is the resale market actually? The luxury resale market currently sits at 26 billion, which will reach 107 billion by 2030. 20% of that market are people who actually want to trade. So here's HouseofTrade's go-to-market approach will include leveraging social media, partnerships. So we have spoken with Finish Line and Sneakertopia, email campaigns, trade requests, influencer marketing, and conventions and pop-up shops. So how will we generate revenue is a subscription-based model. Customers will be dependent on, the cost will be dependent on the number of trades per month. Our competition. Right now, there are a few options to acquire goods outside of buying directly, such as StockX, RealReal, and eBay, none of which offer trading options. If someone wants to trade, they turn to Craigslist and Facebook, which are unsafe and riddled with scams and can't verify authenticity. How we plan to use the earnings in order to keep up with growing industry demand, we will continue developing our platform into a seamless user experience. This includes front and back end website development, developing more machine learning authentication, and building a mobile app. We're ready to ramp up our marketing that will include paid advertising, partnerships, influencer marketing. Our focus will be around assembling overhead, including authenticators, packaging facilities, and merchandising. HouseofTrade hopes to establish a movement that will lead to a less wasteful, more green, and sustainable shopping experience. By trading versus buying new, we would be reducing fashion carbon footprint brought on by producing, manufacturing, front-end staging, and shopper traffic. Once established, we plan to extend our offerings to a wider audience, making products more accessible and obtainable. We invite you to be part of HouseofTrade at the intersection of culture, community, and commerce.
Great job. All right, you can go presentation off, and judges, you can come on to ask some questions.
Sorry, I was
would you
kind
mind
of late on my slides.
Would you mind?
Great.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're good. Sorry, Michael.
I was just going to ask your pricing, the dynamic you have in your price. What made you decide to go with that model, given what the other players in the space have been doing?
Yeah, the reason why I went the subscription model over the per transaction model, because I want to encourage more people to trade and be more active on the site. Whereas if you were paying per trade, it could get up to a costly amount if you wanted to trade pretty frequently. So it entices people to use the platform significantly more.
All right. Okay.
How long does it take to upload my closet?
It only takes like 2 seconds. No, not 2 seconds. Literally, probably less than 30 seconds. You would just take a picture of the front, the back, and then maybe the label, and then any like tears or anything like that. You just let somebody know. When we do sneakers, we usually suggest 4 angles. So the front of the angle, each side, the back, and then the bottom. Excuse me, that's 5 angles, and then the bottom, just to see any type of usage and wear on the sneaker.
How long do you anticipate a trade would start? If I was going to trade with Gary, you need to verify it. Gary needs to send his shoes in. Like, how long will it be before Gary and I have the traded goods in hand? Less than five business days is what we anticipate. Obviously, with shipping issues that going on throughout the United States right now, no more than a week. Because we have had trades prior, and when
when we first started, we were just doing sneakers. So the sneaker trades were usually, if so a trade request went through on a Sunday, they would get it usually on a Friday.
Okay, so this has been tested with like
Yes, it has been tested just with sneakers though. That's where we got the interest from Finish Line and Sneakertopia.
What is the authentication process?
Yeah, so the authentication process is just making sure that a couple things. First, it's in the condition that the user has stated it is, and then also the authentic product. So make sure you're not buying a counterfeit Nike, a counterfeit Gucci, or any high-end luxury item like that. So making sure it's exactly what it says it is.
Oh, but how is that achieved? What are the mechanics of that?
Yeah, so there's a multiple things. So we have a website called Legit Check that tells us what is real and what isn't. And then also we have people who, including myself, who know what to look for and during the authentication process. We have an actual handbook that goes through and tells us, hey, this is what you should look for in a fake item. And it's something that's constantly being updated because with anything, just like with counterfeit money and counterfeit clothing, things do get better. So it's a living, breathing document.
We have time for a couple more questions.
Do you manage returns at all if I'm unhappy with like the quality or like sizing?
So we don't do returns because it's a one-time thing, but you can upload it back for trading, but we do not do returns at this moment. And I do want to talk about our team a little bit. So it's not just myself, but I also work with Karen Nimmo, who has 20 years in product development and management. She worked with Ratio and also with Floyd's Barbershops, developing their platforms as well. She was the VP of product for Ratio. So we're not just some people who are just two people who are just ambitious about trading, and also the financial aspect as well. We came up with the idea pre-COVID, and we saw during COVID, like, hey, people still are engaging in online shopping, e-commerce. If you guys notice, you can go out past anybody's house and see that they have Amazon boxes. So people are they still want to shop, even though money might be a little bit tighter. So this is a way to alleviate that issue and that problem. And we all have a bunch of clothes. I don't care what financial status you are. I know people who have a ton of clothes in their house and they would deem themselves as poor. So why don't you acquire new things through a trade process?
What percentage of the items do get returned?
Excuse me?
Do you have a certain percentage of items that end up having to be returned or?
No, so what happens is we don't receive the items until the transaction happens.
Right.
So we don't have, so there's no return on an item. So once we have an item, that's a transaction that happens. Now we will return an item if it's not authentic, but we haven't ran into that issue yet. And so how we alleviate that issue is you have a 3-strike policy. So if somebody gives us something that either isn't in condition or deemed unauthentic, you have 3 times for that to happen, and then you're removed from the platform. So that is the return policy. We haven't seen that yet, but that is our return policy currently in terms of what you did towards your question.
Great job, Chris. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And next we're going to have Stella Ashaolu from WeSolv.
All right, thank you. I will share my screen. Please let me know once you can see it.
You are good to go.
Awesome. My name is Stella Ashaolu, and I'm the CEO and founder of WeSolv. Diversity matters. We all know gender and racially diverse organizations deliver superior financial returns. But as many top companies are learning the hard way, workplace diversity is no longer a hope to have, but a top priority. But many companies are increasing spend to the tune of $50 billion. But US companies are still missing out on quality, diverse talent. As an underrepresented MBA candidate, that talent was me. I was quality, if I do say so myself, in the pipeline, but I was invisible without the network and experiences of my peers. According to GMAC, the #1 criteria for hire is a proven ability to perform. Well, Isn't that the classic chicken or the egg problem? How could I prove I can perform without the opportunity to prove I can perform? The problem is that companies aren't efficiently reaching and assessing diverse talent for three key reasons. First, they leverage the same few channels as their closest competitors, limiting their reach to untapped pools of diverse talent, disguised as a pipeline issue. Second, recruiters filter out candidates with resumes or tools that only screen for keywords rather than actual ability. And third, hiring managers make final decisions based on behavioral interviews that are proven to be biased and reinforce the likeness of employees already in place. But fear no more. The WeSolv platform expands companies' reach to more diverse candidates from a wide array of channels. And with a proprietary research-based skills model, we identify the best hires based on performance in real projects or case challenges. But can we really do this? We already have, and have generated high six-figure revenue from top companies. For context, in one case challenge, we sourced almost 600 diverse candidates for Salesforce that resulted in a quarter of their product marketing hires in 10 days. We've grown our user network to over 30,000 candidates across the nation. And as recent social unrest magnifies the call for diversity, we've seen an inbound pipeline representing an additional $600K in revenue this year alone. So how does it work? A company identifies the skills and competencies for a select role or roles. WeSolv technology helps to identify what skills should be measured. Virtual touchpoints and deliverables inform participants' performance and skills data. And ultimately, a company receives detailed performance reports where the best candidates are identified by company-specific criteria. We're strategically starting in the MBA space with enterprise companies that hire a large volume of these candidates and are currently expanding to other specialty master's programs. But as these users progress in their careers, they'll provide us a beachhead to also win in the experienced professional hires market. We reach enterprise customers with a traditional B2B sales strategy, along with case studies and channel partners. Users come easier with our direct university and diversity organization partnerships and the built-in network effects of team challenges. We charge companies a tiered annual subscription for access to the platform to host challenges plus a small per hire fee. And WeSolv is uniquely positioned because we provide access to more diverse candidates in one platform and leverage relevant performance data to hire the best qualified candidates at scale. We're a team of big data, machine learning, and IO psychology experts with not only lived experience and skills to win, but also the grit. With nominal investment, we've bootstrapped to these amazing milestones.
I have to stop you. I'm so sorry,
the
Stella.
bridge we need to achieve the product optimization that allows for scale and to capture this low-hanging fruit in this pipeline. So we can raise a seed.
I got to stop you. Sorry. Okay, it's time to bring on the judges. You can answer those questions in the judges' time.
Perfect.
Could you describe a bit of the pipeline?
Sure. So the pipeline is mostly MBA candidates or specialty master's candidates within business programs. It's significantly diverse. So we have 70% of our candidates are underrepresented. Over 50 are women, and they span a range of interests from product to marketing, finance, strategy, operations, et cetera, the traditional business roles that you would find in MBA candidates.
And on the employer side?
And on the employer side, Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies are our initial target market. However, we recently learned that high growth startups that have recently raised significant capital and that are needing to grow are a really great use case and a great customer as a result of our crowdsourcing of these real projects.
Could you please describe the case challenge process?
Yeah, sure. So a company, candidates come onto our platform, they onboard, share demographic information, interest information, and they're able to see challenges on the platform, network with other candidates, and identify and build teams. For companies, they come on the platform and they're able to identify skills or roles that they're looking to hire for. Our technology will then identify what types of challenges are relevant, what needs to be present, and then we'll help push those to our platform so candidates can sign up to participate. And then there's a process where there are virtual touch points, such as a kickoff or virtual office hours, that allow a company to scale the engagement that traditionally would take going to a bunch of campuses or in person on campus, going to diversity career fairs and conferences, manual outreach. We scale that through those touch points. And then ultimately, candidates submit their deliverables, and we have objective criteria that assesses and provides performance data, both on a team and individual level, so that we can give companies reports of who their top performers are based on those skills and competencies.
So congratulations on the traction you've had so far. If I understand correctly, you're in the high six figures in revenue. What will the money that, if you are awarded today, where are you going to dedicate that? Like, why do you need that funding right now?
Thank you. So we've been a really, really scrappy team. We've been able to accomplish all of this with very nominal investment. Because of the influx of inbound, we have low-hanging fruit that we want to go ahead and capture. So we're raising a small round to help us create some technical optimizations that will allow us to scale and execute these challenges that are currently in our pipeline, including executed contracts. And with that, we'll be able to get traction markers that will allow us to go out in the near future in about 6 months and raise a more substantial seed round with favorable terms based on that low-hanging traction that we have right now.
We have time for one more question if anyone has one.
Which communities, which diverse communities within the MBA, within the smaller MBA community, are you getting the most traction with?
Do you mean as far as like African-American versus
African-American,
women,
Latin, Indigenous, et cetera? And what is your plan to increase engagement?
Yeah, so great question. I think we've been really targeted with our efforts. We are trying to focus on where our companies are having the most struggle. So we've really focused on African-American, Latinx, and Indigenous populations. However, women have been a significant source of diversity on the platform as a result of our intentional focus and partnerships with organizations like Forte Foundation. The way in which we build our network and kind of our secret sauce is we really understand the way MBA programs work and the organizations and networks that they're plugged into. So we grow our audience specifically by direct university partnerships to the career centers, but also the student-run career clubs that really dictate what you do while you're in your MBA program. We also partner with diversity organizations who you might have seen as competitors, but they're really our partners because
I have to cut us off. I'm sorry, but you did a wonderful job, Stella. And thank you everyone for the great questions. Judges, you have the unenviable job of going to go choose a winner for today. So think of your top two and bring that to your breakout room. Everyone can go camera off and and muted or I guess judges, you can stay camera on in the breakout room. But I am excited to welcome Scott Issen from FutureFounders. So Scott, you want to join me on? Perfect. So a little background on Scott. He is the president and CEO of FutureFounders, a nonprofit that believes every youth can become an entrepreneur. Scott has over 15 years of experience in management, leadership, and fundraising. And as one of the organization's founders, Scott created an unparalleled suite of entrepreneurship programs for students in elementary school through college and beyond. During his tenure, FutureFounders has served over 35,000 students and will serve another 2,000 this year. So Scott, it's great to have you on. Thanks so much.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
What do you think of those pitches?
Oh, I'm glad I'm not a judge today because they have the tough challenge of trying to figure out who of all the deserving founders should receive the capital. So best wishes to all of them. They were great.
I'm sure you have the same problem when you have 2,000 students a year coming through with amazing ideas. But before I guess we get into some of that, will you tell us a little bit more about the origin of FutureFounders, why you guys decided to start it, and just the beginnings?
Sure. Well, I'll take you back to 2005 or the early 2000s, before there truly was like much of an entrepreneurial ecosystem, and you were one of those like early players as well. And Now, what was interesting, I was working at the Chicagoland Entrepreneurial Center at the time. They're the organization that now runs 1871, so people are probably more familiar with that brand. But we helped all these high growth entrepreneurs in various industries to raise money, get clients, and then provide access to mentors. So many of them were looking to give back. And around that same time, Motorola had approached us. This is back when they were one company. They're headquartered in the city of Chicago or in the suburbs. And that was the year that the Razor came out. And we all remember how that was the coolest phone in the world and everyone wanted one. And they said, look, we love what you're doing at the CEC. And we really want to invest in you, but focus on that next generation of innovators and discoverers. So we kind of took this entrepreneurial demand and the seed capital and started a program. And we realized that there was a lot of interest specifically in the Latinx and African American communities for youth to connect with entrepreneurship, but they didn't have role models in that space. So we said, what if we actually connected, high school students from underestimated areas of Chicago, give them a chance to actually learn and grow and get some type of, connection with these founders, and then also build entrepreneurial skills in the process. So we did that for 6 years, and then in 2011 decided to spin the program out of the CEC into a separate nonprofit. We partnered with Brad Keywell, who's a serial tech entrepreneur. Many of you probably know him for Groupon or Uptake or Chicago Ideas. And he had actually started a youth program for middle and high school students. So we said, why don't we join forces and do more together? And that was really how we got started. And, we just celebrated, 10 years last month officially. So we're excited because there's a lot to come.
But I didn't actually realize that whole story. So thank you for sharing it. And I don't know if you know that's about me, but I started my career at the Kauffman Foundation, and I also spent some time with the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. So this is a special place in my heart. And I think sometimes when people think of teen entrepreneurs, they think we're trying to, create the next Mark Zuckerberg and encourage kids to, drop out of college and go pursue, these small business ideas. But really, it's quite the opposite, I think. And I know from my perspective, it's about teaching the entrepreneurial mindset and the skills that kind of can allow students to have going throughout life. So going off script here, but what can you just kind of help people identify some of those skills that are transferable to any job or any passion?
Sure. And, what I think is interesting, and entrepreneurship is something that's very empowering, regardless of whether people start businesses, work in startups, work in larger organizations, they need to have the ability to create their own path. And I think a lot of the aspects of starting a business or the process of starting a business teaches you those things in a way that makes them more relevant. So for instance, coming up with an idea or recognizing opportunities, and I think a lot of us see problems out in the world. And if kids and young people have an opportunity to look at the world in that lens, that will help them to realize what opportunities might exist and how could I take advantage of them for some type of, world benefit or financial gain. I think also the ability to pitch something that you're passionate about, just like what we saw here today. It's very hard to share something that's your own idea that stems from personal experience or that you resonate with other people to get feedback, and to have that type of ability is really important. But we talk about things like creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. These are all really important aspects of that entrepreneurial toolkit that will serve middle schoolers, high schoolers, 18 to 30-year-olds kind of throughout their career journeys.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the act of teaching someone how to take an idea from their head and bringing it into the world to create value is at the core of entrepreneurship, and the monetary piece and the customer acquisition piece is layered on depending on the track that it goes, right? But anything from starting a club in college to candidly sometimes negotiating with your kids and compelling them to make better choices are all part of kind of the entrepreneurial skill set, and one that can be helpful throughout life. So I of course love what you guys are doing. So what do you think, I guess, why do you think it's so critical to foster this entrepreneurial spirit, especially in communities like our Black and Latinx communities that you mentioned already?
Well, I think what's interesting is, we use the word underestimated a lot to talk about the students that we work with and the founders that we work with, because there's so much talent, and specifically in the Black and Latinx communities. And I think people need like externally, I think people need to recognize that and give people more opportunities. But I think within the communities, it's how do we help people have the confidence to kind of take something that they're passionate about and follow through on it. And we are teaching students and young founders skills so that they can actually grow and potentially start businesses or carve their own career path. But more importantly, we're giving them kind of the ability to recognize that these skills and talents reside within themselves. And we're helping to just put a name on it. A lot of times, and you've probably seen these too, there's people starting or running businesses who don't self-identify as entrepreneurs. So we're trying to put a name on it and help people realize that this is actually a thing. This is an opportunity for them to actually, choose a career in that, and that there's a potential to sustain yourself or your family, to actually hire other people. So it's really about kind of bringing the power back, so that way you don't have to depend on someone else to give you an opportunity. You actually can create that for yourself and make sure that it's values aligned, mission aligned, with how you want to go about work. And, there is such interest specifically in the Black and Latinx communities to start these businesses. And, what we hope is that we're not only giving them the skills and the confidence, but also creating that network of support that's so needed. I mean, it's very lonely and hard to start and run a business, and to be able to surround yourself with like-minded peers who are going through those same life and business challenges can really make the difference between, success, failure, and then also just happiness and frustration.
No, absolutely. And whenever someone kind of strays from the beaten path of your community or your family, the fear of failure and the opportunity costs sometimes become very, very high. And I know particularly for, first generation immigrant students, choosing entrepreneurship over a safer bet, like, working in a corporate job, can be a very difficult decision because of the investments that previous generations made to get them through college or whatever. So I'm curious how, again, sorry to throw new questions at you, but how you guys navigate, or if you do get a chance to talk through some of those community specific, considerations.
No, we do it. And I think part of that is, as we guide and mentor, our young founders, it's recognizing kind of where they're coming from and what, barriers exist or what, situations exist. And so, it's thinking through, how do you make entrepreneurship accessible? So not only how can you provide the content in the community in a way that people can take advantage of it, but also understanding like the realizations. Like, one example we use all the time is that, while some communities have access to, deep pockets and friends and family to help support their operations, not everyone has that. And so, we help our founders, think about, how do you make entrepreneurship sustainable? Do you need to get a part-time job, a full-time job, a side hustle? Like, what are those things that you need to do to build some capital or be creative? So that way, as you're kind of in those early stages, you can actually get have those financial resources, because at the end of the day, we all need to eat. We all need to have a safe place to live. We all need to have a support system. And so we talk about like, what kinds of things can you do on that journey? Because it's not like you start a business and all of a sudden you now have a 5 or 6 figure salary coming in. It's going to take some time. And so thinking through that is important, and thinking about how can you, potentially, do something on the side or have a full-time job and then ultimately make a plan. Those are things that are really important. And I think it's something that to celebrate, because, some of the best founders, well, I should just say, a lot of entrepreneurs don't think about finances. They necessarily love thinking about where the money's coming and where the money's going. But to really be successful and happy and continue doing this, we need to talk about those things. Like, we also need to talk about how to make just the entrepreneurial community more inclusive. And, we love what TechRise and P33 have done, because sometimes it's just getting that first check or those first couple checks that you need to really get that momentum to get your first client or get your MVP out there. And to have like organizations who support that can be really like key, and really help people get from, where they are now to where they want to go.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that we have this perception sometimes, given everything that's in the news, how many billions of dollars are coming in for venture capital right now and how much, like how frothy the funding ecosystem is. But the reality is that still, less than 3% of any startup is going to receive funding. And I know with a last name like Wrigley, for me, people think that family money somehow started my first company. I wasn't married when I started Give Forward. I waited tables at night and for 3 years before I ever even took a salary. And I think it's so critical to remind early founders that you're building this for the future. It's almost like, going back to school or doing something that requires extra time and energy. And it's like, no one's just going to hand you $5 million to go build this business. You have to prove it out. And it takes a lot of work. So I appreciate that you guys think about the sustainability of people's kind of personal finances alongside figuring out how to go and build your business. But I do think that there's a problem that we have tied to that I just described, which is that our life cycles for founders end up being much, much longer before they get to that first stage of funding in Chicago than in other cities. So what do you think we need to do as a city to better accelerate that access to capital for founders of all ages?
Well, I think I would actually go back to the first thing. We talk a lot about bootstrapping with our founders. I mean, I think, on that entrepreneurial checklist, people think, they need to do certain things, and raising capital is one of them, when, to your point, most founders don't need that, or they just might need some type of capital infusion. They might need a loan, they might need, to just throw some, personal savings in. But I think at the end of the day, what we can do to really support the founders is to buy from them, because at the end of the day, sales and revenue generation will be how founders actually build sustainable businesses. And I think part of it is, as you're making purchasing decisions, if you have an option to try something from a small business, sure, they don't have the same infrastructure or safety that a large company has, but they're going to work 10 times harder to make sure that you have a great experience and you get a great product or service. And so I think a lot of it is just, we can all take chances on them and buy from small businesses, buy from entrepreneurs. Think about, how can our companies, offer like procurement opportunities of both products or services? So, early stage founders are actually getting opportunities that will help to be more sustaining. And then also, if you can make introductions for them, that's great. I mean, there's a lot of great organizations in the city. Chicago Blend is another one that I really love to really help, diverse founders get access to, what investors or VCs actually really think, and to give them those, practice opportunities, just kind of like what we're doing here today, to get your idea out there, to get some feedback, and to hopefully walk away with some money. And so I think if we actually take a chance on people who are not proven yet, we will likely be positively surprised. And, I try to buy from as many of our founders as I can, just because that helps them and that helps our ecosystem as a whole.
Yeah, I just, as you were saying that, I was like, I wrote down we should have a shopchicagostartup.com. Don't take that URL, anyone, or do take it, go build it. But we should have people, there's just like an Airtable or something where you can link over and shop from Chicago startups. It's a great idea. If it already exists, put it in the chat below on YouTube so we can go and find it. But it looks like the judges have decided who the winner is. So founders, if you could come all back on stage. And Scott, thank you so much for a great conversation today. Sorry, really quickly, can you let people know how to find you?
Sure. Just visit us at FutureFounders.com. We're always looking for volunteers. So if you want to be inspired and meet the next generation of entrepreneurs and business leaders, just reach out and we'll plug you into our work. And thanks for all the support that you're doing for the tech ecosystem, Desiree, and everyone at P33 and TechRise.
Well, we love partnering with you guys, so thank you. All right, so founders, we come back on stage. Who are we missing? And then which judge is going to announce the winner? All right, Tina. Looks like we're missing Marcello. Okay. Marcello, are you coming on, Marcello?
It's not working.
Oh, okay, well, we can hear you. So, oh wait, there you go. Okay, so I guess drum roll.
All right, so we are really excited to hear these pitches, and congratulations to you all for starting something and the traction that you've made so far. We have decided to award this week's TechRise winnings to WeSolv and Stella. Great job.
Woo!
Thank you so much.
Stella, congratulations, and everyone else, congratulations. And as a reminder, this is not a one and done experience, an opportunity. You are welcome to come back on the TechRise stage. We're running out of weeks this year, because we're going to be done in early November or mid-November, but we will start up again in February, and we'll definitely have you all back. Everyone did an amazing job today. And as a reminder, thank you again to Cooley for sponsoring this week's prize. And thank you so much to our judges for the thoughtful questions. And as always, thank you to our partners at Verizon for making this happen. So have a wonderful weekend, everyone. And you did a great job.
Thank you.
Good day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.